Now I'm recording. All right. So I have Olga. Olga, please pronounce your last name because I don't want to butcher it.
Laque.
Okay, good. That's just how I
Yeah.
would have said it. Okay, good.
Alright.
Olga Laque, right?
Yes, correct.
Rusty Johnson. Your name is easy to say. My name is really hard to say. No, not really. Anyway, so you ladies are pretty courageous. Just got through the Rocky 100K. What, like 2 weeks ago, right? Or no, last week.
Yes.
No,
Two weekends ago.
Last weekend was the other one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's some masochists that who go out and they'll do the 100 or 100K one weekend and then they come back the next weekend and do the 50 miler. I'm just like,
No way.
as if didn't, you have enough challenge.
Especially in the same weather conditions.
Yeah.
No.
Well,
Yes, it was
that I
still
don't-
muddy and it rained.
Oh, I
Yeah.
know. I saw that. It was just. So anyway, this is not your first 100K though. You guys did.
This is my first 100K.
This was my first 100K. Yes,
It
both of us.
was.
Yes.
Oh, why did I think you guys did Bandera? Okay, well that would be dumb.
I mean,
anyway.
we're badasses. I don't know if we're that badass yet.
Well, no, and that's perfectly good because this is even more fun then because this, 100K, that's a pretty outstanding distance, and then of course to have the challenge of Mudfest, and Waterfest.
Yeah.
So what made you choose this particular race? Just because it's less gnarly than Bandera, or
Well, I think if I had to choose, I would definitely choose Rocky Raccoon there at Huntsville versus Bandera because I did the 25K and that was brutal enough. So yeah, I was happy there. I often wonder, like, what if the weather conditions were better? Had I would have done better, absolutely. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
But it is what it is. And, I felt this time was my time for the 100K and I'd been working for training for months. And I was just kind of like, I got to do it. This is it. This is now or never, So it was good. I just felt like, it was good. I was in a good place, healthy wise, I had been training. And as far as my physical, I've been working out too, working up, building strength and working on my core and strengthening. So I was in a good spot, which I felt. And so I was hoping that, I know leading up to it, there was bad weather coming up. So I was just kind of worried, are they going to cancel it? Are they going to cancel it? Or are they going to postpone it? Are they going to change locations? That kind of thing that was going on because kind of what.
Well, that's been happening, I mean,
Yeah.
I want to talk to somebody at the state parks. I'm not sure who, I mean, I'm sure it's each superintendent makes these choices, but I just like to know how they do this because it's like Brazos really got messed up. And then of course, Bandera and Cactus Rose, they are forever, I mean, in this thing.
Yeah. I'm just pleasantly surprised that they allowed to have the race.
Both weekends.
2 races back to back in those weather conditions, that's.
Yeah. And I mean,
that's a lot. Yeah.
On a good day, the roots aren't, are your biggest enemy. So it's.
Oh, yeah.
Ooh, but well, Rusty, what about you? Did you guys just kind of say, okay, we're going to make a little pinky pact here or something do this? Or
I mean, maybe there was a little pinky pact that went on since we've been training together for so long now.
Yeah.
But I had done my first 50K at Brazos Bend. So since I already did my 50K there, I knew I didn't want to then go back and do the 100K there. And then like Olga, I've done the 25K at Bandera. And I was like, I love all those people that go out there and do the 100K. I don't know if I'm like crazy enough yet to try to do 100K out at Bandera. So Rocky sounded like the perfect place to go. It was also a state park I hadn't been to yet, and I'm trying to visit every state park. So help me check that off. And I had heard historically outside of, a few years where there might have been, some freezing cold temperatures or, a time when it was also wet, but not this wet, that normally it had been pretty decent weather for running. So we figured, oh, this looks like a great course outside of, the routes that may try to murder us. this sounded like a fun one. Plus it was a decent sized lap that you had to do. So it wasn't too, mundane of doing it over and over again. Plus it looked like the park was an amazing place to run, which I still agree. It's an amazing place to run.
It is.
And so it was kind of the no-brainer that seemed like the perfect place to do inside of Texas, our first 100K.
Yeah.
And so then, we all started kind of talking about it because we're part of the SAR-ORR team. And so we all started talking about doing 100K, and we all kind of agreed Rocky Raccoon seemed like a good one for us. We did have a handful of other ladies that when we started the adventure all like a year ago that were potentially going to do it with us. And it ended up being myself, Olga, and Kay that ended up towing the line for the race, and myself and Olga that, punished through, like you said, all of the conditions to earn our first belt buckles. But I think it was a lot of the friends and family that I've made at the SAR-ORR team that, really helped push me through the training and had me believe that I could even do 100K. Because before 2020, I really wasn't a runner. And I used to always jokingly say, you'd only see me running for two reasons, either away from a serial killer or after Luke Bryan. And now for fun, I ran 100K. Like, no one understands this. Like, coworkers are like, wait, Rusty, you said you'd never run like even a half, and now you're running a 100K. And especially after I ran my first road marathon, I vowed I'd never run that far again. And I found the trails, and that's where my heart is, and it makes me so happy. And I know a lot of us over on the trail side have some similar stories to that as well, on how we found peace and joy and happiness and bliss on the trails, and it has allowed us to go to crazy distances that we might have never thought we would do. But I recommend anybody, if you're going to do 100K, go try Rocky Raccoon. Even if it is Waterfest and Mudfest like we had, I mean, it was fun. It was a different challenge. And now I know if I have dry conditions, I think I could beast out there in 100K.
Well, yeah, it was a PR. So there you go.
Yeah.
I'm going to pause this one quick second. I have a crying cat here who sometimes does this to me when I'm recording. Oh, I don't know if you can hear that. It's like,
I love you, kitty.
it's feed me. Yeah. And I've got two, but the other one will just come walk across my laptop. But all right, hang loose for one quick second. Zoom. Okay, now we're back in business. Oh, goody. He's happily eating now. So that makes me feel better. It's like, oh my God. Yeah. Especially when I was teaching, during the pandemic and stuff. Yeah, it was, we would have pet parades, there'd be, maybe, and my two guys would just, carry on and act up. And so
Gotta love the kitties.
I know, they're fun. I like animals, but anyway, so Rusty, are you from Texas? I'm going to back up a little bit. We'll get back into the nitty gritty of your race, but I want to find out a little bit more about you because I've been acquainted with you through the San Antonio Roadrunners off-road runners. It's a mouthful. So are you from San Antonio or?
No, born and raised in Minnesota. There you hear it.
Oh,
You heard it right
good.
there.
Yeah,
But moved to Texas as fast as I could. So when I graduated college, I moved up to DFW and I started my career at JCPenney's. So I'm in the retail corporate side of the world.
Yeah.
And then what brought me down to San Antonio was I worked for a company called Grunt Style for a little bit. It's a veteran-owned apparel company. And then had the opportunity to go work for HEB. And so I'm over at HEB in their corporate offices, sourcing fabulous product that you can find in store on the GM side. But not a Texan by birth, but I Texan by choice. And I consider myself more of a Texan than a Minnesotan. And everybody thinks I'm a Texan from the way I act, the way I live, the truck I drive. So I think I was meant to be here.
Well, that's great. That's great. And how old are you, if I can ask?
I am 36, right?
You're like,
Let me do the math quick. I don't know. I feel like once you turn 30, you just don't know how old you are anymore. I mean, oh no, I'm 37 right now. I'm going to turn 38 this year. I don't know. I'm in my late 30s, apparently.
You're still younger than both me and Olga, but I'm older than all three of you. So yeah, I just turned 63.
Oh my God. You look fabulous.
Yeah. Thank you. I don't, sometimes I don't feel it. But so what made you decide to start running, Rusty?
So I had friends when I lived up in DFW. We kind of did some 5Ks here or there. I thought I was dying when I did them. It took well over an hour to complete the 5K, but it was fun. And then I had joined Orange Theory in 2019 and made some friends there. And we kind of made this goal for 2020 to run a 5K every month. And I was like, 3 miles, like even if it's just for fun and I'm slow, it could be worth it, right? And then obviously we all know what happened in 2020 and the world went crazy. And a lot of those friends that I made decided to not keep going on with the goal. And I was like, well, I'm kind of having fun with this running thing. It kind of sucks at times, but like I'm finding a little bit of joy in it. And so during the pandemic, I had this idea, maybe I could run 13 miles. Like that sounds like crazy, but maybe, just maybe I could do it.
Mhm.
So I decided to sign up for one in the fall of 2020 that then got postponed to the spring of 2021. But started doing training, not like the training you're supposed to do, like training that I thought I was supposed to do. I've always been huge into strength training, so I had that as my base, but running was not really my forte as much. And the one that I signed up that got pushed out to the spring got pushed out even further. So then I decided, well, I'm trained up. And so I had been running a lot of the Scallywampus races, which I love. Their organization can find me volunteering there because I love them so much. And I did the Wanderlust half marathon up in Fredericksburg and ran my first half marathon, cried when I crossed the finish line, thought it was something I'd never be able to do. And that's when within the running community, I met people on the beef team, which I'm part of. And I met people in the SAR roadside of the team and had made friends with some of them. And throughout then the rest of the spring and the summer, they then convinced me to join SAR and train for my first marathon. So in the winter, I guess, of 2021, we ran BCS and I did my first ever road marathon and hated it after I crossed the finish line, if I'm being honest. And I didn't really want to run at all. After that, I really got a case of the blues that everybody talks about. And so then in 2022, I said, I really like hiking. So why don't I try this trail running thing? Like maybe that's where I'll find my joy again, because I was just having a hard time even going and running like 3 miles. And so I started running on trails locally by myself and then found out that SAR had an off-road team. So I joined them in the fall of 2022 and ran, excuse me, I ran the prickly pear without joining them and did the 15K. And then I joined the training team and did the 25K. And within that first season, all of the crazy people that I've come to love so much convinced me I should run a 50K. And so then we went into 50K training. And in 2023, I ran my first 50K at Brazos Bend and my first 50 mile at Wild Hare in November.
Oh, yeah.
And once I crossed the finish line at the 50K, I said I want to do 100K, but I wanted to check off that 50 mile mark along the way there. And then, 2 weekends ago here in February, we checked off the 100K. So I really went like 0 to 60 pretty fast in this running journey and distance. But trail is where my heart is. Like I barely do any road races anymore. I love going out and supporting the road team. I love everybody that runs the road. I just don't find the joy that I find out on the trail that I love so much. And so you'll find me doing crazy distances on the trail from now on, I think.
That's good. Yeah, well, it is sort of yeah, it gets contagious or it gets contagious, and addictive
It
after a
is.
while, until you get injured, and then it really, and then you're miserable because you can't join your
We're
friends.
knocking on wood. Let's not get into it.
No. I mean, no, I've had that happen. That's the only reason I mentioned that. It's like, oh, yeah, I had plantar about 6 years ago, and my friends would be out on the trails, and I would take my road bike out on like the paved part of a trail. And I was living in the valley at the time, but just because I just missed everybody. It's like, this is my social outlet.
Yes.
It's just, anyway, that's kind of an interesting trajectory you have there. Olga, what about you? I've known you for longer.
Yeah.
So
I'm sorry, what's your question?
no, I was just going to say, how did you get involved have you always been a runner?
Well, actually, I started pretty late in life. Growing up, I've always been very active. We've always been in a very active household growing up. We played sports growing up, and football and baseball was huge in our. And so I grew up doing track, um, and fast pitch softball. So
I
I
can.
played that growing up, and then in high school I was a cheerleader in high school, and then woohoo.
Are you Rusty too?
I was a cheerleader and a gymnast. Yep.
I was a cheerleader, and then I was a cheerleader for a pro amateur league right out of high school. For the back then it was the San Antonio uh, Dodgers. Now they're called the San Antonio Missions,
Oh, yeah.
but yeah, and that was I mean that was so long ago. But then then my son, he was very active growing up, and when we were trying to find the right sport for him, swimming was his thing,
Mm.
doing club swimming. And then he was doing high school swimming. He was on the swim team. And then he started doing triathlons at 14, 15. I'm like, oh, I want to do that, and so it's just something that I wanted to do to participate with my son. So I started running when I think I was 42,
Okay.
like in my 40s,
Yeah.
42. So I did 2 sprint triathlons with him, and swimming's hard. I'm not a swimmer. So so running was I started doing training for half marathons. And so I did years of half marathons. And before I moved on to a marathon. And after doing a couple marathons, and we all know Fabian Gonzalez, know and love Fabian Gonzalez, he says, hey, you should try come running off-road with us. And I'm like, oh yeah, what is it? Tell me about it. And then, it was just kind of one of those things like, okay, I've got to try it. And I tried back in 2018 when I was, 2019. 2019 is when I did trained for my first 50K. And I just love trail running. Yeah. So there's no looking back. So I'm just like you, Rusty. I love trail running, and I've been doing it for 5 years now. And I would prefer that so much more than the road. So yeah, I did my first 50K in 2019, and actually I won first in the masters category.
You're
Yeah.
fun to be in the Masters.
Well, I
Oh,
was 52 at the time, 2019.
wow.
So
That's
yeah, I was like, what was my time at 2019? Oh, 7:14. I'm like, what?
that's good. I'm
Yeah,
jealous.
yeah. So
Yeah.
so now it's just done a couple of 50Ks, and I did my first 50 miler back in 2021.
That was at
And
Brazos, right?
that was at Brazos Bend.
Remember that,
That
yeah.
that was I loved it. I loved it out there, and that was a great place to do your first 50 miler. I did have a coach then, Tim Pearson,
Yeah.
coached me for that. He's a great coach. Learned so much out of him, and he's huge on nutrition.
Oh, yeah.
So learned a lot from him. So when I finished that, I finished pretty strong, and I felt really good. And I'm like, whoa, I can do 12. I think I can do another 12 more miles, And so uh, I've been thinking about 100K since 2021, but then I had an injury in 2022 and, took care of that, and then had to start back on my base building and, work on my endurance. So here I am. And now, yeah,
That's so
got
cool.
my first 50K under my belt, but I think that's my one and done. Who knows? But yeah,
Oh, for the 100K?
for my 100K.
Ah,
Yeah.
I'll convince you otherwise. We'll do
you've got,
another one.
you've
Let's
got
do
a
another one.
100 miler in you.
Well,
Come on.
I had 50K at 58. I just feel like, I want to continue doing this for a long time. So I just feel like I'm in a good position as far as my health and being injury free, and to where I want to scale back on my running and just maybe, do a 150K a year, maybe one or two a year, and just stick to 25 Ks. I don't know. But I'm good. I want to be healthy and be able to do this at a long, for a long time.
Yeah. No, I can totally understand that. I think that was my last year because I just
Yeah.
well, I just found out last year I've got arthritis in my hip, and so it's like I've not been able to really run, and it's been so I've been doing these rowing classes, and which is great. I mean, it's a it's a great workout, and but it's I'm trying to get back into the running, but because I do want to do Wild Hair 50K in November because that's my favorite race of all time. So
I love that race. That was such a great place.
That rabbit hole though. I don't know. I knew there was a drop. I didn't expect it to be like that though.
Well, I did my first 50K and my first 50 miler out there, and my first 50K is kind of like well, maybe not quite as bad as your Rocky, but it was close. It was, when was it? 2015, I think, 2014, yeah, something like that. And then um, it was fine for the first two loops. And all of a sudden you start seeing this little cloud poking through the blue sky, and you're like, huh. And next thing you know, there's this like giant deluge, and there's lightning flashing through the pasture.
Wow.
And I thought, oh God, they're going to call the race. They're just going to call the race, and I'm not going to be able to be an ultra runner today, and I'm going to be really mad. And Joe Prusadis, who is the former, he's the original owner of Tejas Trails, and he was race directing at that time. It was so bad, that one section when you go up, when you come down that one hill, and then you have to go around, and then it's kind of like a catacombs kind of thing. So he was lashing ropes to trees so that we could hang on, so we could get up the hill.
Oh wow.
I slid. Oh, yeah. And yeah, it was epic, but it was so much fun. It kind of took all the pressure off. And I don't know if that's how it felt for you guys at Rocky, if it was just sort of like so getting into the whole Rocky thing, were there, did you ride the highs and the lows and all that sort of thing? Did you guys stay together the whole time? Or?
Yeah, maybe on the first loop, it was just like, oh, okay, I went in there with the intentions of doing intervals,
Okay.
and that kind of went out the door. I mean, it was just like, well, it looks like we're going to be trudging through the whole time, because that's actually what I was doing. You're just trekking the whole time because you're in ankle deep mud, thick mud. You're slipping and sliding all over the place. And then when you did have opportunities to run, then, I took it at that time, but it was just like, I just try to play it safe going through those, I wasn't going to try to run through those ankle deep,
oh, that was
mud
wild.
pebbles. I mean, no, it was just, it was bad. But then, yeah, second loop was like, okay, I can't do this again, but I'm doing it, Yeah, it was tough.
Yeah.
And then the final loop, I just, I trekked it the whole time, and there were very few opportunities that I would trot here and there, but I just trekked it. Yeah, the final loop, and I was okay. I mean, I like I said, I'm in a good position to where I'm not looking to. I didn't have an expectation. I didn't have a certain time. I just wanted to complete healthy and
bring home the buckle.
Yeah, exactly, and finish within the time allowed. And yeah, had I wished that weather conditions were a whole lot better, of course, but it is what it is, and it finished, it worked out, and I finished, I feel great, and the recovery's been well.
Good. Did you ever hit any kind of point where you thought, where the DNF fairy is whispering in your ear, and you're just kind of like, oh, sorry, there's a crash in the kitchen?
No, not at all. I mean, going into my final loop, I after the socks, the changing of the socks and shoes and all the mud, yeah, I was already annoyed with that. I was over it. But no, I was kind of like, okay, we're doing this. I'm here, I'm doing it. Yeah, you come this far, you've trained for months, and my body's tired. I want this done, and I want it over with. And so that's how I felt. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I can understand. And yeah, I know you guys were like beasts in training, so
Wow.
hats off to you. So Rusty, what about you? What was your Did you guys stay together the whole time, or were you kind of
No, we ran the first like 2 miles. There was a little 2 mile loop we had to do first, so we ran that together. And once we went out on the first big loop, we started off together, and then Olga knows I like to bomb down some hills, and I think it's when I bombed down that one hill, and I know Olga's normally a little bit more cautious on that. That was the last time I think I saw Olga. I saw her in like every once in a while where we'd have like crisscrossers. Oh, she's coming. But then we kind of ran our own race from then on. I did try to hold more of my intervals that I was planning on doing as well. I think I went a little bit more aggressive per se and through some of the mud and the puddles. I was like, I'm gonna play a chance and see what happens on them. There were a few that I was like, oh, I shouldn't do that. So then I remembered that for the next loop around. But the first loop, I think, when you first headed out, you were like, oh, I want to try to keep my feet dry. And I feel like it was after a few miles, you were just like, whatever, our feet are not going to be dry. Like, just live with it. And I still feel a lot of us on that first loop were trying to find like the path of least resistance with them. By the time I was out on the second loop, I was just like, just go straight through it. Like, you just got to do it. There's no other choice. Just embrace it.
Yeah.
Enjoy it. And so I really enjoyed the whole first loop because I felt like it was exploring, right? I've never been to the park, so I don't know what's around the next corner. The second loop, I was still pretty much in high spirits, and especially when the sun came out for a little bit. I say I'm fueled by sun. So when the sun was coming out, I was walking around with my arms up, like being like, yes, the sun is here. This is making me so happy. And at that time, I was still kind of having fun with the puddles. Like I was saying to some people, like, remember when we were kids and we'd go and splash in puddles? Well, that's what we're doing right now. Isn't this so much fun? And one of our crossings that was like knee-high water, the second big one that we had, by the time we got out to the second loop, it had gone down from knee to like above ankle. And I kind of made the joke like, where's my knee-high water? I want a refund. I came here for knee-high water, not ankle-high water. And everybody was laughing about it. So still in really good spirits for the first two loops. One of my personal goals was to try to cross the start and finish line of the first two loops before the sun went down. And I just snuck in that last little sliver of light was in the sky as I crossed over. And even one of the race guys was like, you should have a torch with you. And I'm like, I do, but I wanted to cross before the light came, the sun went down. So I was super excited about that. And like Olga said, did a change and headed back out. And it was a little harder being like, okay, we're going out in the dark now. So now it's going to, our pace is going to slow. I did what I like to call night trotting. So I did some night trotting.
What is that?
So it's just slower running. I just call it night trotting because I feel like it sounds cool. But it's so I was able to do some of that in places where I knew it was flatter and a little less sketchy with slippery mud to Nature's Aid Station, so about the halfway mark. And I was changing my socks also at Nature's every loop because I was just deathly afraid of getting a blister or a hot spot. So I spent the extra time changing my socks 5 times during the race and lubing them up with Happy Toes so they stayed happy, which I'm lucky to say that my feet scathed away without any issues. But then when I left Nature's, that's, the last 11 miles out there, and my friend Monica was going to be pacing me, but 2 weeks before she had a little rock climbing incident. So she was not able to head out on the trail with me. She still came to crew. So I took that as a sign that the Lord wanted me to, do this challenge on my own. And so I will say for me, the demons came in the last 3 miles. So I knew it was pretty good getting to that last aid station that was out there. And I was like, okay, I'm just going to keep moving. I'm feeling good. And then we had a thing I would text her 3 miles out so that they would know that I'm coming in so they could get prepared. And by the time I got to sending that text, I was just over it. I was like, I can't feel my toes. Every time there was a water puddle, I was kind of like, I don't want to. And I'm like stomping through it. And I got slower and slower in those last 3 miles. And at one point I was like, I just want to sit down. And I had to tell myself, I'm like, Rusty, who's going to come get you? No one's going to come get you. Keep putting one foot in front of the other. Keep your ass moving. You got this. You can do it. Doesn't matter how slow you're going. And I just kept stomping on, and I was like, I'm going to finish this. I can finish this. I can finish this.
We're so close.
So, yes, I was like, and it's in the last 3 miles. That's when my brain starts
So
trying to,
interesting.
send the demons in of like, you just too much. You shouldn't do it anymore. And I really think it was because I couldn't feel my toes. And I know that's a thing. If I can't feel my toes or my fingers, that kind of like throws with my mind some.
Sure.
And so I just kept moving. But then when, we were right there at the end, I was so elated and excited to be like, oh my God, I can't believe it. I can't believe I've done 100K. Like, this is like probably one of the most amazing things that I've ever done in my life. And I can't believe I actually completed it. And
well,
so,
and under adverse conditions on top of that.
Under adverse conditions, some of the people that have been there a lot of, multiple times had said this is the worst trail conditions that they've ever seen. So I also just think about that, like how badass every single person that attempted it and completed it, like the conditions we went through. And I know Olga and I have talked about it. Like, that was our first 100K and we did it in that conditions. Like, what would 100K be like if we had like good normal conditions? Like, what could we do then? Like, I would just, it just blows my mind. And so I'm already like, what 100K might I do maybe this fall or winter?
So yeah, you got and once you recover from it, then you're like, well, I didn't die, so let's
die. Yeah,
let's go try this again. No, I know that feeling. Yeah, I think we've all gone through that. So what was I going to ask you? What about did you eat the food at the aid stations, or did you bring your own stuff, or how did that go for you guys?
I made my own food, and yes, I did both, but I started off with my own food, and I had blueberry pancakes, and
Sounds good.
yeah, they're good until you get sick and tired of them. I had blueberry pancakes. I had some Nature Bakery fig bars, and peanut butter sandwiches.
Oh,
So I had that pretty much throughout the whole time. And then you get to a point where like, I can't eat anymore. You just kind of, you're just stuffing your face constantly because you need to keep eating, right? And you just hear that voice, you need to keep eating, you need to keep eating. And back at base camp, Scott had mashed potatoes for me. So I had mashed potatoes. Oh my God, those were the best mashed potatoes. And then going into my final loop, he also had some top ramen for me. So I had some top ramen. So that gave me, and then I don't drink sodas, but I did have a Coca-Cola, and that just gave me the boost that I needed for that final loop. And it was just like, yeah, because I was worried about, being out there at 2-3 a.m. in the morning. How am I going to feel? Am I going to start feeling fatigue? Am I going to start falling asleep? I mean, I just didn't know what to expect, And so I was worried about that. So I did have that Coke, and that really gave me the lift that I needed. I just felt, yeah. And yeah. And I also had some quesadillas out there. Those were delicious. Yeah.
It's funny. They could put sand in front of you and be like, oh my God, this is so
oh my God, that's the best thing. I know. Those those instant mashed potatoes, right? Best thing ever.
Mashed potatoes with ramen broth on it. Oh my God.
Yeah.
Die for. Yes. Yeah.
So that's what I had throughout. And then I had a pacer who David Holmes, and he was wonderful.
Good.
So he kept me awake, he kept me going, and he just kept the miles going and the time, and it went by fast. He was incredible. He was awesome. And he pushed me through. Yeah. So I it was good. But as far as the food, that's what I had. Yeah.
Well, that's good. That's good that you had the pacer too, because I think, poor Rusty. Well, at least you had a crew there. So
yeah.
But so Rusty, what did you have
necessarily poor Rusty, right? Like, it was my choice. I probably could have found someone else, but I decided to take the challenge. And I feel like I learned a lot about myself. It helped me, made me even stronger. And so now I know where that last 3 miles, that's where the demons come out in me. So now I need to be prepared for that, you know, when I do my next 100K. For my food, I had also brought packed food. I took one basically every 10 miles. We had it at base camp, and then I had a drop bag at Nature's. And it's been what I've been training with for the entire time on all my long runs. So a half PB&J sandwich, the pull apart Twizzlers, 2-bite brownies, a Rice Krispie treat, and a salt cap. That is like my go-to, I guess, like magic fuel power, that if I eat that every 10 miles, it's amazing. And then the, what is it, Damnation, and the other side of Damnation, I forget what it's called. At whatever that area of the aid station there, I would just I'd take pickles, pickle juice, and oranges, and then one of their peanut butter and jelly sandwiches. So pretty basic food, but I know that's what sits very well with my tummy. It doesn't upset it, and like that's what I think is the key thing, right? Like we both love PB&Js as one of our things, but that might not work for you, right? So during training, find what works for you, and then when you find it, right, like stick to it. And I would say that last bag that I had coming out of Nature's, I literally probably walked for like a quarter of a mile, and I'm like, I should start eating this. And I'm like, I'm so glad I was in the dark, because I'm pretty sure I was eating it with my mouth open, because I was like, I know I need to eat this, but I kind of don't want to. So you got to put the fuel down, because you know you need the calories and your body's going to want it. But definitely at sometimes, you know, you're like, I'd rather not eat. I'd rather just keep moving. And then I did have liquid calories as well. So in my front bottle, I had G1M from BPN, which is a carbohydrate electrolyte mix. So I had one of those every 10 miles as well. So I think that combination of a liquid and a solid, and I'm definitely more of a real food person. I really can't do gels or chews anymore. They just do not sit well with my stomach at all, even for a shorter distance. Real food is my jam. That was key, and it kept me through, and I felt great crossing the finish line. I didn't feel like I had run out of energy. So it's just finding that balance, and like, what's that right balance for when you should be eating? Some people, right, need to be snacking the whole time, where I've found my body works a little bit better breaking it up into chunks. So
yeah.
Good. Well, and I think also it's part of like the training is really where you learn, you know, what works and what doesn't. And you know, because you definitely don't want to be trying new things, you know, on the day of the race, which of course I've done, but we probably all have.
yes.
Yeah, you know, my drop bag, it's so funny because it's like, I mean, it's been ages since I did an ultra about 2 years ago, but yeah, it's been ages. But yeah, like when I do a drop bag, I don't know what I'm gonna feel like. And so it's like I'm like your person that you want to hang with, because I'll have you know, like chips, I'll have Coke, I'll have, you know, peanut butter and jelly or peanut butter and Nutella. Oh, that is really good. And yeah, and just all kinds of stuff, because I just don't know what I'm gonna feel like. And so I just have it all there, you know, and then I'm sharing it. And watermelon. Well, when it's hot, watermelon is like,
Yes, watermelon. That was so great at all the Captain Carl's night races. They had watermelon out, and I was like eating that watermelon like no one's business.
oh, it's so good. I have a friend of mine who 1 year they were out of watermelon at the aid station, and they just had like the tray with all the juice on it. And so he just grabs the tray.
I totally do that.
Well, he's one of those guys that actually wins races too. So I don't know. I'm not gonna doubt him.
No.
But what was I gonna ask you? So it sounds like you guys both had great experiences, and it sounds like, you know, you were supported. Yeah, I mean, I think for me, it's always like my mental game is the thing that I have to work on the most. But that's just because I've gotten lazy through the years, and not been as vigilant about my training. And so you know, I just sort of half-ass it. I'm out there going, oh God, I want to quit, you know, and then it's like, no, you can't, you know. Oh God, I guess it's trust your training. I think that's the
That's the
catchphrase.
saying, right?
I know. So Rusty, you said you're definitely looking at another 100K later this year.
Yes, that's my plan. I have a list of them that, you know, I look to see what 100Ks would be maybe late this year, early next year, and, you know, just eyeing them up to figure out which one may be the one that I'm going to pick. I thought maybe when I cross the finish line, I'd want to do a 100-miler. That is not in my brain yet. Like the seed is still there. So it's not a like, it might not ever happen. It's I feel like I need to get, you know, another 100K, maybe 2 or 3. I don't know. I'll know when I cross that finish line and my body said, okay, let's take it to the next level. But I was like, I need to do another 100K before I even contemplate this idea of a 100-miler. But yeah, I was like, I want to do one this year. I was like, I don't want to wait till next year. I really want to do one again.
Yeah, you're on that you're on that energy still. Yeah, no, and that had to have been a confidence booster for both of you. You know, just like, okay, yeah, I got that. Check that out.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. So, you what are you going to do? Like Texas 100Ks, or are there out of state 100Ks that you're looking at?
I mean, I'm open to anything. I like to travel to national parks. And when I go to national parks, I actually run the vacation races, half marathons that they have. Those are on roads, but I think it's different because it's like near a national park. There's a different vibe with it. And I do it as like the end of my trip to be like, I spent a week hiking the national park and then I go do the race and it's fun. Because then I get to, you know, hang out with people after I've been alone camping for a week. But some in Texas, some outside of Texas. I'm thinking potentially staying in Texas just, you know, due to vacation time. I may or may not have already planned for national parks this summer. But there are some outside of Texas 100Ks that I'm like, maybe one day I'll go out and do these as well. So we'll see.
Now, there's one up in Wisconsin called the Badger. I don't know if you've heard of that one.
I have heard of it. Yes.
Yeah, yeah, and I actually have a free entry for that I still need to use. I'm not sure. I was gonna maybe just do like the half or something, but I don't know if I'm gonna do it. But that sounds like a really fun race because it's kind of a flat course. It's like a rails to trails kind of course, and it's in July, I think, in Wisconsin, July.
Which that's actually beautiful weather.
That's what I'm saying, you know,
Yes.
because it's like, yeah, because you're down here and it's like, 105 degrees for, months.
That will
Be like 80.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. So, but anyway, that's just something I just that popped in my mind, and then especially since you're from Minnesota, I mean, it's kind of nearby, so anyway. Olga, what about you? Now, I also forgot to ask you, are you from San Antonio
I
originally?
am born and raised in San Antonio, Texas. Yeah. Yeah.
Now
The
you-
only races that I'm looking into doing this year are and here in Texas, the Davis Mountains. I believe that's in September. I would like to do that. I did the Franklin Mountains when it was part of Trot
Uh-huh.
back in 2021, and that was that was awesome. But I did the 27K. That alone felt like a 50K doing the but yeah, that was tough. But I'd like to do the Davis Mountains. And then also the Big Bend State Park in January 2025. I really don't have anything set for the rest of the year, but I'd like to do a 50K, towards in the fall.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Come and do wild hair with me now.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh God, yeah, I've done that race every year in some form or another since 2012. So that's my favorite.
Is it?
Bluff Creek Ranch? And I just love the whole
Yeah, it was
the
beautiful out there. I like
cows.
it.
And
Yeah.
this year we had the cow giving birth, and
I had an opportunity to see that. We were just passing or coming in at that time, and I actually saw when that calf dropped, and I'm like, that was so emotional. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I know I shaved a lot of time, just watching that, but it
oh
was
no, but
so
that's a
beautiful.
once in a lifetime thing.
It was, yeah, it was perfect
Unless
time.
you grew up on a farm.
Oh
They're
yeah.
used to cows dropping.
Oh, we'll see. Yeah, I mean, I grew up in the country, but not like that. So
Yeah,
it's pretty
never.
cool. And I like the horse barn. I think that's just such a fun little touch. And the loops are very doable, I think. So
Yes.
it's yeah, but
I would do another race out there, absolutely. Yeah, I loved it there.
yeah. So do either of you volunteer at races, or you're just too busy training?
I never have. I would like the opportunity to do so because I was either doing the races or training.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
volunteered at Scally's races, Scallywampus Roads races. Try to get there, and I've tried to volunteer on some of the SAR races as well. But one of my goals is in my build downtime now this summer, I'd like to get out and volunteer at some of our local or semi-local, because trail races really aren't super local races that we have, just so to give back to the community that does so much, because
It's
those
fun.
fabulous people at the aid stations, even that just keep going, like just hearing that, helps
Yeah.
lift your spirits so much. So I want to be that cheerleader out there cheering people on when they, hit a low spot, to tell them, no, just keep going. You got this. Don't stop. There's no need to stop. You ain't dead yet.
Cowbell.
I've got one in my closet somewhere that I bring with me and for my aid stations. But yeah, you get to see like a different side of it. And I think that's what's interesting, because it's like I was volunteering at Bandera this year, and there's a guy who was attempting the 100K, and he sat down I was at the equestrian aid station, if you know where that one is. That's the, kind of like the one, anyway, yeah. Anyway, it's kind of close to the road. But this guy he sat down, and then I guess I didn't notice him, but one of the other spectators came over, and he's like, this guy can't stand. And I'm like, oh my God, and so yeah, he looked horrendous. And so I gave him a ride back to the start finish, and he dropped. About an hour or so later, he came back, and he looked like a completely different person. It was just like, he was like,
Coca-Cola.
well, it's like he had all that tension and
Yeah,
whatever
yeah.
was gone from his face, and he, just looked, yeah, he was happy and hydrated and fed and all that, so that part is really cool, I think, to do volunteer time. So yeah, I highly recommend it. But anyway, well, ladies, we're coming up on almost an hour, and I know that you, Olga, what do you do for a living? I always keep forgetting to
I'm
ask.
actually retired right now. Yeah, I worked for USAA for 27 years, and I was in the investment management company for the brokerage operations. And my job was coming to an end, or, because with USAA, the investment management company sold their investment products to Schwab. And so I had an opportunity to look outside or look within USAA. I was hoping to retire from USA, but unfortunately that did not happen. But at that time, I just thought it was a good opportunity just to, just I thought, oh, well, then I'm gonna, and it was right before the pandemic, right when the pandemic happened on June 2020. Worked from home for a few months, right when quarantine hit. And so I decided, well, I'm going to take the year off, and then I'll look for something else. Well, here we are going on 4 years this year, right? So it's been nice. Do I miss corporate America? No, I don't, So it's been nice, and I've been lucky, and I've been very fortunate to not being able to work right now. So I may look for something. I've been saying that for 4 years now, but yeah, here
It's
we are.
it's perfectly okay not to.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, as
So,
long as you can, get by and everything, then you're fine. So,
so it's been good, and time flies. Time flies. So with this time, I've had the opportunity to train, so it's been good. Otherwise, I don't know how would have been able to do it. Yeah,
yeah, no, that's
Very carefully.
yeah. I mean, but
yeah, I can see that. Yeah, I mean, very cool. Well, ladies, I really appreciate you both taking this amount of time out of your day to talk to me and share your exciting, I shouldn't say exciting, but your extraordinary story. And congratulations again on getting that 100K buckle, which is really amazing. And just hang loose for one quick second, okay?